stories. So, I just started my first job. It's a fry cook job at a royal fast food chain in America. My first days started off fantastic until I met my male manager. At first he seemed nice, way better than the female manager. He laughed and joked around with me and the other employees and generally made me feel pretty comfortable at a new place. Fast forward a few hours after meeting him, and shit hit the fucking fan very fast. I feel like to get the whole creepy factor, I should probably first describe what this guy looks like. He's tall and greasy, fat, has glasses, pimply, grayish black buzz cut, has glasses. He looks like a total neckbeard. He also talks like Renee from Storage Wars. Okay, so I'm getting off topic again, but I digress. This manager is a creepy dude. My first shift with him started off swell, like I said, but after the main manager left, it started off innocent enough. He asked if I liked mini golf. I wanted to be polite, and I told him yes. Then he proceeds to ask me to go mini golfing with him like 4 times. I'm a minor, and I told him I don't think my parents would be very comfortable with that. His response, "We can just tell them that Sarah, the female manager, is coming too." I brush this off because maybe the guy is just lonely. No biggie, right? Wrong. The next day, another woman, Hannah, was training me. She's about 50 and very sweet. I was making the sandwiches pretty quickly, and she was excited. She said that I was doing a great job, and that she hoped I'd stay around for a while because I was making her day brighter. Then the manager came around and says, "I hope you stay too. We need more cute girls around here." I quickly excused myself to go to the ladies' room to text my boyfriend and tell him what had just happened. Within 5 minutes, he was at the store. He asked to speak with the manager and explained to them that one of his friends, me, was being treated inappropriately by a male manager. The creeper then comes out to the back where all of us were, standing and talking, and begins to flip shit. He goes into full-on rage mode, saying shit like, "If anyone thinks I'm trying to steal their fucking girlfriend, I have a fucking fiancé." Then starts showing us pictures of some random girl who is clearly not his fiancé. I clocked out and went home. I wasn't too scared since my boyfriend made sure they knew someone was having a problem. I figured if anything happened, I could tell him and he would solve it. The next day I went into work. Same boring shit. Creepy manager showed up halfway through. It got slow, and we were all bullshitting again, and he came into the back and joined our conversation. I was talking about my boyfriend with Hannah, and she was laughing and calling me cute for blushing when I was talking about him. The manager then says, "Teal hair? Don't care. You should really smile more. Makes you look even cuter than you usually do. You look so innocent." I walked into the back to get on my phone. I come back, and the manager is standing there. "So, how old are you?" Stupid me answers, 17, but I'll be 18 in like a month. "I hope you're still here in a month. We can go out and do something for your birthday." At this point, I tried to walk away, but now he was blocking my path. Luckily, Hannah called me, and he moved. The entire day, I work until close. I could feel his beady eyes staring at me. When I went outside with another worker so he could have a smoke break and I could get away from the creep, he walked over with his phone. On the screen was a picture of an Asian porn star in a schoolgirl outfit. This is the kind of girl I'm into, he said. I tried to shuffle away slowly, but once again he was blocking my path. The guy who was outside noticed I was uncomfortable and stepped in between us and said, "Bruh, she's not even hot. Plus, she's got fake tits." I tried to get away again, but it didn't work. The manager then said something that makes my skin crawl, even to think about. "Yeah, but it's the face, the innocence. Something about taking advantage of someone just does something for me." I would like to say that I noped the fuck out, quit, called the owner, anything that might have even been a little bit useful, but I didn't. I finished my shift, listened to this dude talk about all the sex he had when he was my age and how I shouldn't stay with one person for too long. I need to mix it up a bit or else I'll get bored. On my way home, I almost cried. I felt so disgusting. I went in and the next day hoping to speak with a different manager about him, but he was the only one there. I uncomfortably worked my shift while trying to avoid him as much as possible. Eventually, he managed to corner me again, this time asking me about the ring on my thumb and my boyfriend. Somehow the conversation topic changed to the future, and if I ever planned on getting married. Obviously, I said yes to try to deter him, but he pressed on. I told him, "Maybe I'll end up with a woman, you never know." He then began to flip shit again. He said, "Don't ever end up being a lesbian. That's horrible. At least be bisexual. That way guys can have a little bit of fun too. Don't be selfish." I rolled my eyes and walked away. Later on, the other worker went on break. During breaks, we aren't supposed to stay in the store, so I guess he left or whatever. But I was alone with the creep, and I started cleaning so that when 11 came, I'd go home faster. He then tried to have a conversation with me about what fun I thought was okay at my age. I quickly told him about how I was waiting until marriage because I have too much to focus on right now with college and stuff. He said, "Come on, a little bit of fun isn't gonna be too bad. You just need to feel pleasure. Then you'll understand." I was too scared to do anything. So I just went into the ladies' room and felt really uncomfortable. That night, my mom was picking me up. It was 11:30, and I was waiting outside of the store for her, so I could just leave. I was waiting outside for like 2 minutes when the manager comes outside. "Come wait inside. A pretty girl like you should not be standing out here alone." I told him that I lived down the street and my mom would be here in a minute. He said, "I can always drive you home. I'll never let a woman walk home. It's against my moral." I then took out my phone and told my mom to hurry the fuck up and come ASAP. Her contact photo came up. It was a picture of us at graduation. The manager says, "Is that your mom? She's really cute, but I still think you're cuter." I called my mom, and of course, she didn't fucking answer. "Are you nervous? Come here, give me a hug. I'm sure she'll be here in a minute." I never ran so fast in my fucking life. I sprinted out the door, away from him, right as my mom showed up. Fast forward to last week, I was working till close alone with him. I texted my boyfriend about how uncomfortable I was, and he came to the store and waited in the parking lot for me. When suddenly, the creepy manager gets a text from the main manager cussing him off for not doing his count. He freaks out, throwing a tantrum like a child, yelling, kicking stuff, the whole 9 yards. I keep cleaning my shit, not wanting to get involved. He went into the freezer at 11. I did all the dishes and mopped up until about 11:40. He finally comes out of the freezer crying. I said, fuck this shit, dude. I'm done right now, alright? And I clocked out. My boyfriend was still waiting outside, so I walked over to his car and kissed him, and shit, when suddenly I looked up, the manager was staring at us. My boyfriend drove me to my car and urged me to quit. I am female, and I was kind of a dweeb in middle school. I was the quiet girl, a label that kind of followed me all the way through grade school and eventually would through half of high school. I was picked on for it to some degree, but ultimately people ignored me, which I decided was preferable to being harassed every class period. I was also not very into girly things, having a preference for video games and drawing, which kept my pool of like-minded friends pretty trimmed down. I was too shy to approach any boys in pursuit of friendship or whatever else, so I mostly stuck with a pair of chicks who, despite going their own ways and becoming homecoming queens in the following years, really enjoyed my awkward and quirky company at the time. I believe I was in 8th grade, and Valentine's Day rolled around. Being an insufferable nerd, I initially didn't give it much thought. Our school did this silly thing in which you could, in the days before Valentine's Day, order carnations and have them delivered to other students anonymously or otherwise. Needless to say, I wasn't expecting one. But in first period that day, I was sitting down for roll call, and the flower delivery person came in for their rounds. To my great surprise, my name was called. I was so floored that at first I didn't speak up, assuming I had heard the name wrong or something. But sure enough, after a few pointing fingers from the rest of my class, I was the confused but flattered recipient of a nice peach-colored carnation. I had no fucking clue who the sender was. By lunchtime, I was itching to see if either one of my gossipy, know-everything girlfriends had any leads. They were too surprised to see me sit down with my lunch sporting a carnation, though not in an insulting way, and were very keen on getting to the bottom of it. They were thrilled to think there might be some shy boy with an interest in me, and after the initial shock, I was too. They did a bunch of asking around that lunch period, and by the end of lunch, had a potential candidate. His name was Josh. I did not know him very well, but I had a couple of classes with him, namely art. I believe he was also in my math class. He too was a very quiet, lonesome, nerdy type, and I knew he was into video games, if only from the art project we were doing at the time. He had made something with the Super Smash Bros. Theme, and I thought it was pretty fucking cool. He had glasses, long curly blonde hair that he kept up in a ponytail, and wore all black pretty regularly. Immediately, my mind wandered through the prospect of having him as a boyfriend, going home with him after school to play video games and draw and whatever else two dorks would find interesting. My friends had concluded it was him after talking to some guys who knew him, claiming that he had said he'd bought a peach carnation anonymously for someone, though they didn't know who. It seemed sufficient information, though, so we all got it in our heads that he was the culprit. The following few days I expected him to eventually come forward. I watched him fondly from a distance in my art class, though not obsessively, and certainly never had the balls to go ask him about the flower. What would I ask anyway? What if my friends and I were wrong in our detective work? That'd be pretty awkward. And being the socially anxious creature I was, not even the prospect of having my first boyfriend could prod me towards something so potentially devastating. So I waited, with much patience and empathy, for my fellow socially awkward penguin. Weeks passed, and I was never approached, despite how exciting it originally felt. It drifted to the back of my mind, and I quietly accepted that we were probably wrong. Either way, it seemed unlikely that my Valentine was ever going to fess up. However, he was. I eventually had better things to think about, just about forgetting about the incident altogether. Fast forward a few weeks, and I walk into a circle of the popular kids in one of my classes whispering about something. My seat being where it is, I could hear everything that was said. They seemed pretty disturbed, and were talking about some quiet guy who had left notes in all of his classes that they found. The notes were essentially weird, cryptic poems entailing his desires, plans to shoot up the school, and subsequently kill himself. I never personally saw the notes, but it was very concerning, and as the conversation went on, it became undeniably clear who they were referring to. So when they started trying to remember his name, with repeated failures, I finally spoke up. "Josh?" I attempted timidly, which was met by several surprised looks, and finally, "Yeah, it's Josh, that's his name." I felt sick and wanted to cry. I don't remember all of the details on how things proceeded from there, but eventually I was convinced that no one that knew about this was planning on going to any sort of authority about it. I don't believe I told any other students about what I had heard, hesitant to start some stupid rumor, but I did tell the school counselor and my parents because I was genuinely scared for my safety. Afterwards, I never heard any follow-up to the whole ordeal, but I never saw Josh again in my life. I assume he was expelled. Frustratingly, none of the details were ever solidly confirmed, but the possibilities still haunt me to this day. Perhaps it's stupid and overly empathetic of me, but I sometimes wonder if his failed attempt to finally make a connection with someone on Valentine's Day was the final straw for him, driving him to thoughts of homicide and suicide. I hardly feel guilty about it, but it's just another aspect of the whole ordeal that makes me absolutely nauseated to think about. This happened about 2 years ago in my high school junior year. I was the kind of student who would take honors AP everything. A waste of goddamn time, by the way. And I was taking accelerated pre-calculus so I could get into AP Calculus BC the next year. It was around September or November. It's the beginning of the school year when a new kid, Corbin, randomly shows up sitting in the back of my math class. At the time, the seating arrangement sat me near him, so I thought, let's be nice to the new guy, and started to just acknowledge his presence. He would ask me questions, I would politely answer, etc., nothing special, but no one else was really doing it at the time. He wasn't the type to be immediately popular the second you move schools. And he had the classic pudgy, short nerd look to him. Glasses, neckbeard, a rotation of 3 shirts. So I felt bad. I was never one to make friends, wasn't popular, wasn't that good looking. Depression actually made me gross as fuck, so I felt empathetic. Turns out we shared another class, AP US History. This time Corbin sat directly in my table group. We would have to interact more in the class, so maybe he started to see me as a friendly face. I mean, being a new kid is hard, especially when everyone else has known each other most of their life. But that's where the problem is. I don't know what about me gave him the impression that he could confide in me about his love interests, but after a week or two, that's what Corbin started to do. At first it wasn't too suspicious. It was saying things like, "Wow, math class is so great." What the fuck? And Miss Egger, our math teacher, is such a great teacher. Like, yeah, okay, things like that are normal to hear when you're sitting in class full of AP nuts that want to go to an Ivy League school and become the next Stephen Hawking or whatever the fuck. But then he started really wanting to know more about Mrs. Egger. After things like, "Is Miss Egger married?" "Yes." "Does she have kids?" "Yes." Pictures are literally right there. And then he kept saying things like, "I want to have all 6 periods of the day be math. And, I don't want to leave math. Why is it such a short period?" At this point, I would try to stay away from Corbin. I wouldn't talk to him. I wouldn't look at him, giving signals of, "Ew, please go away." I had some sort of gut feeling that he liked more than just math. I would literally run from our math classroom the minute the bell rang in an effort to keep him from catching up to me. But he would still fucking find me and say things. I have never power walked so hard in my life, and he still somehow caught up. Impressive in a way. In my history class, we eventually had to do a group project as a table group. It was me, Corbin, and 2 other girls. We had to draw some sort of poster about the Civil War, and I was in charge of drawing most of it because for most of my life everyone knew me as the girl that can draw. I've gone to art school for 8 years, been traditionally taught. I had to draw some sort of southern looking guy, and I guess to him it looked like fucking Joseph Joestar, like the anime character from the Stardust Crusaders arc. First of all, ew. Not ew to JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, but ew to the fact that I just got my years of art practice whittled down to looking like a fucking anime character. But whatever, that wasn't the problem. The problem was that Corbin would not let that go. Instead, doing actual work and helping on the poster, all he did for the rest of the class was just fucking make JJBA sound effects. Like, what the fuck? The other 2 girls and I would just look at each other and then go back to doing our work, trying not to give him the attention he so clearly wanted. He would always try to crack jokes to no avail when watching documentaries in US history class, so it was nothing new. He would actually repeat his jokes numerous times, but even the teacher wouldn't give him the time of day. But the poster thing was so painful that I actually stopped liking JJBA for a while, only started getting back into it now, just because he was so fucking cringy. I eventually got sick and tired of Corbin's bullshit, and decided to email both Miss Egger and my AP history class saying that I wanted to be moved as far away from him as possible in class, and have them make sure that future seating charts would reflect that. I didn't go into details as to why I felt so uncomfortable, because what was I supposed to say, and the teachers didn't ask any questions, so I got my wish and got moved to literally the opposite corners. He was in the front left corner, I was in the back right, yada yada. I would catch him staring at me a lot, but he stopped talking to me after that. Thank the goddamn Lord, right? Then I found something out that made me feel bad for Miss Egger herself. Sometimes, when I missed class, I would go in after to make up notes or take quizzes, and I noticed he was always there. During lunch, after school, he was always just sitting there. Corbin didn't have to make up anything. He just wanted to really spend his day with Miss Egger. And it was every day, and other kids would see him when they went to make something up every day. But I would try to rationalize all of this. Obviously, he didn't have many friends, being new and all. So maybe he wanted to sit alone during lunch. Or maybe just wait a little in the classroom before his mom came to pick him up after school. And maybe Miss Egger is the only teacher he feels comfortable around. Then suddenly it's Valentine's Day. For me, not a very special day. Never has been. Never will be. Just a regular, normal-ass day. I had missed class the day before. Yes, I am a serial skipper, if you haven't noticed. And went in after school to make up the math test. Oops. Surprise. You know who is in there giving Miss Egger motherfucking cookies, saying he wanted to do something special for a special someone like her and whatnot? Some poetic lovey-dovey bullshit. Miss Egger accepts it. Which, I mean, I would personally decline since I found a black hair baked into the cookies. He had brought a math potluck once. Spoilers, he's blonde, with a slightly forced "aw, thanks," and finally leaves. I take my test. Don't remember if I did any good, but right as I'm about to walk out the door, Miss Egger asks, "Can I actually talk to you for a second?" I'm like, what the fuck can this be about? I thought I was in some sort of trouble missing all the classes or something, but it turns out she wanted to ask about Corbin. She goes, "I know you didn't want to talk about why you were uncomfortable with Corbin, but I was wondering if there is anything you can tell me." I was like, oh, thank God she noticed. And so I finally spilled the beans about how weird he was, how he seems to be infatuated with her, and how I thought that she was oblivious to it all this time. Miss Egger tells me that she already knew, and that she just has to put up with it for the rest of the year. Because what else is there to do? She thanks me for telling her, and the rest of the year progresses with less amount of weirdness. I eventually started to tell other people about my interactions with Corbin, not for the sake of gossip, but because I wanted to warn people, especially the girls, who tended to hover around him. He would always just go up to a pair of girls and stand in between them, just watching them talk to each other, not even engage in their conversation, just watching. That's when I found out other girls have had similar suspicious interactions with this kid. How he kept trying the whole, "What if we kissed, haha, JK, unless" line multiple times on multiple girls. And how he harassed this one particular girl that I guess he liked over text, etc. One trend of his is that he would really take interest only in Asian girls, so he probably had some sort of yellow fever situation going on too. Junior year ended with no further bumps, and when senior year started, I walked into school and don't see Corbin anywhere. He's not in my classes or any AP class, which is weird because he'd probably take it. Turns out he moved back to where he came from over the summer. As for me, I missed more school than I'd like to admit, but still graduated in the top 5% of my class out of 560 students. See kids, it's possible, but just don't quote me on it. Now I'm in college, living my best life, and out of this hick town for good. As for Corbin, you better not see me again.